What's going on, YouTube? It's James Q Quick from Learn, Build, Teach. And today I'm back with another resume review. This one is from Andrew Ellick, a local here in Memphis. So we'll go ahead and just dive on into his resume. So first thing I see, which is something that I typically like. I like the little intro here. I don't know if you need the software developer as kind of a heading, so you could get rid of that, save a little bit of space. Next piece of feedback is this is probably a little too long, so I think you're trying to get into software developer who has used Python, MySQL, AWS, and Heroku to develop many front-to-back platforms and services. You get into some of the tools you've used, and then some of the projects you've worked on. I think this has I'm not gonna fix or try to fix all of your wording, but I think this has got to be something shorter in this kind of time frame. So I'm a software developer who has experience building full stack applications and doing automated testing, and I'm looking for the next opportunity to grow in a specific area, something like that. It doesn't need to be very long. I would definitely cut that at least into about half. Because honestly, I'm just not going to read through that entire thing, or I'm going to skim it and I'll probably lose part of it. Another piece of feedback on here. So I guess we'll go ahead and go down to the skills section. So we got skills. I am really hesitant for especially new developers to put expert on their resume. I wouldn't put expert at anything on my resume, and I've been developing for 6-7 years. I absolutely would not put expert on my resume. I feel like you're just kind of setting yourself up for someone to really want to take you down in an interview. If they see you put expert on there, I feel like you're really going to be challenged if the interviewer has the ability to kind of go off script and ask you some additional questions to things. So that's not how I would phrase this. I get the idea of kind of showing your different skill sets and what your experience is. I think you're just setting yourself up a little bit for failure by saying expert and then advanced and then intermediate is your lowest one. What I would probably do is more just organize these, and this is a typical thing that I see, more organize these by like languages and frameworks, tools or hosting platform or automated tooling, something like that. I absolutely wouldn't put expert. I wouldn't break it down that way. So that's just me. Another thing, I don't really, this doesn't fit. This last line under skills section, I wouldn't put like a soft skill under skills section. These are, and it's weird because they're all just words, right? Adaptable to new situations. If anyone gets a choice, no one's going to put on the resume not adaptable. So to me personally, saying I adapt to, that's something that everyone's going to say, so that doesn't mean anything to me. I would get rid of this completely. So just go ahead and get rid of that. You could change this to something like languages and frameworks, automated tools, and then hosting, maybe something like that, or automated tools and hosting. That's probably the sections I would go with. Another thing that I forgot about up top here, I don't really understand, and so many people do this, it's really odd. You can't have a mix of incomplete sentences and complete sentences. Incomplete sentences are something like we come down here. This is an incomplete sentence because it doesn't have a subject. Assisted QAs so it doesn't have a subject. That's an incomplete sentence, but it's its own bullet point. If you're doing bullet points, it's okay to do incomplete sentences. If you're doing a paragraph, that's not really okay to me. It really bugs me, and I see it a lot. A lot of people do this because I think they mix trying to figure out how to talk about themselves with like this bullet point format, but then they put it into a paragraph format. So this, to me, has to become: I am a software developer. A software developer has used Python to develop many applications using various APIs. You gotta make these full sentences. So one, I would clean this up by cutting it at least to half, something like that, because overall advice is to shorten your resume. You got to cut that down to 2, maybe 3 sentences, and they've got to be full sentences because it's in a paragraph format. One small thing I didn't mention is you've got a link to your LinkedIn that looks like it's broken. So that's actually, I was going to say it's nice that you've got a link there to LinkedIn, but that's broken. So you definitely want to fix that. Any links that you have on here, which I'll get to another one in a second, you absolutely want to make sure that those things are up to date and working. Another thing, and this will be just kind of throughout the entire resume, is you can go in and these keywords that you're using up here, the keywords that you're using inside of your job descriptions, go ahead and bold those. Don't bold everything, but make sure that those keywords, the things that you have experience with that you're trying to express to someone, make sure that they stand out in a way that's easy to see. Because I say this on every video, recruiters and myself, when I look at resumes, it's seconds, and 10 to 15 seconds maybe on an initial pass. And after I go through 10 resumes, then I'll weed it down to 4, and then I'll start getting kind of nitpicky and going into more of the details. But you've got to make it as easy as possible for them to see what your experience is. So you've got work experience. Looks like you started recently at Smart Bear as a software engineer. One of the questions people are going to have, and this is not necessarily a problem, you just need to be prepared for it and to be able to respond confidently to it, is you've only been in your current role for 6 or 7 months now. Why are you looking? Because hiring managers and hiring companies are going to have a little bit of hesitation on someone that wants to move around that quickly. So we're in this new era of people don't really stay in the same job, or especially the same company, or especially job, for longer than a couple years. That's just kind of this new mentality that us millennials have. And I think there's a lot of benefit to us of getting different experience. It's a great way to move up in different ways. But hiring managers are going to have a little bit of concern, I think, about seeing 7 or 8 months on your resume. I think, the 1 year, crossing the 1 year, I think is a little bit better. Get 2 years, I think it absolutely makes sense for you to be looking for something else, maybe a year and a half. But here at 8 months, just be prepared for the question of why are you leaving, and why would you not leave whatever the company is that you're applying for going forward. So assisted QAs from various Fortune 500 companies with architecture Selenium test. That should probably be capitalized and then bolded, and their various frameworks. That's super unclear, I guess, and their various frameworks. I might just shorten that by a line and get down to just saying Python, JavaScript, Java, etc., something like that. That saves you another line. Build integrations with Microsoft and Jira. So Microsoft, that's like Microsoft in general. Microsoft what? Usually it's some sort of product, Outlook, or I don't know, actually. I guess the online, like Microsoft Azure, like Microsoft something. What integrations did you build? By gathering, parsing, inputting relevant data using Python and OAuth requests to improve customer satisfaction and acquire new clients. I wonder, do you have any tangible numbers to associate with acquiring new clients? Because this whole sentence becomes really impactful if you say created integrations that led to the acquisition of 100 new clients. Like, that's a super powerful statement. That's also really short. So I would look at, do you have a number or a specific outcome of that to be able to tie here in this one? Design a tool that pulls data, parses, and inputs in a database, which can predict future growth. So that's definitely a typo. Future growth of a software framework using GitHub and Stack Overflow data. You gotta find a way to shorten this. I mean, designed a tool which can predict future growth of a software framework using GitHub and Stack Overflow data. I think that is probably it. Also, I would be a little skeptical in reading this. Like that sounds like a pretty bold statement of I can predict future growth of a framework just based on data from Stack Overflow and GitHub. And I get there's probably some correlation behind like number of users of the GitHub repo, number of stars, number of questions on Stack Overflow about that technology. I get that, but it's a little vague. I once had an interview where someone said that they built a tool to teach their students how to figure out the answer to questions on standardized testing without actually reading the question or understanding the question. If one, it was a pretty bold statement because if people could do that, then everyone would do it, right? But also it was a little like semi unethical. But nothing unethical here. I'm a little skeptical, I guess, on what that actual product looks like. You've got your skills listed out inside of the description, so I would get rid of that line and then come up and you've got to go into here, etc., and bold those keywords so that they stand out. Your assistant manager, pool supply store, you worked there for 2 years. Then you had a gap actually before your software engineer job at Smart Bear. Because there's already a gap there, honestly, I would probably take this off because it's not really relevant to a computer or a programming position. I would probably take that off. It's not relevant. I don't think it helps you very much. I think you can basically kind of say your career started in 2019. But scrolling down, looking at your education, you graduated with a degree in finance in May 2016. So you've certainly got to be able to explain, why are you only starting your career now? And part of that might be maybe you just now really got into like self-learning and really realized a year ago that you loved programming and you went through a boot camp or took an online course. That's probably something that goes up in this. You can the more you can kind of jump ahead of the concerns that employee or hiring managers are going to have, like why did you graduate and then you don't start programming until 3 years later? You could address that. I completely transitioned careers after falling in love with programming. I'm a software developer who's used these things to build full stack applications. I'm looking for an opportunity to further my career. Something like that speaks to, why you have that gap. It also speaks to your passion because you self-taught or you went through some sort of avenue outside of a traditional degree to get the skills that you needed and then got that first job. So that's really cool. You got a couple of projects on here. I think, so one, again, I'm going to kind of hack stuff away here. Don't need to list out a skills line item in here. I think that should be present in your description. And I think your description probably needs to be a little bit smaller too. And the reason is I want this resume to get down to one page. So you look at this, this line item could definitely, I would recommend figuring out how to cut that down to 2 lines. And honestly, build integrations with Microsoft and Jira. Like gathering, parsing, that's pretty standard, right? That's probably something that just kind of makes sense of what you had to do. So that's a line you can probably cut off. Design a tool, which can, I won't go too much into the wordsmithing of that, but I think you could definitely cut that down. And then projects, definitely cut down as well. So I'm not really getting specific on these, so just realize I'm just kind of cutting out willy-nilly. But let's say I would expect something more like that for this project. And one of the concerns I have is this doesn't actually link to anything. So I'm getting no, I guess maybe you don't have a SSL certificate maybe. That's a concern. I would definitely, if you have a project and especially if you link to it, you absolutely want to have that thing ready for people to get to. Go in here again. Let's say just for size wise, I want it to look something like this. That's getting a lot smaller as well. Amazon giveaway bot. I looked at this on your GitHub repo. The idea is super cool. A bot to automatically enter you into thousands of giveaways at Amazon's giveaway section. I like that. That's super cool. You've got some detailed instructions. So if this is all your work, that's really cool. And that's one of the things that I would recommend that I don't do that well is to have really good documentation on your repos so that when people come and visit them, they can see that you actually are kind of on top of the stuff that you're advertising. I don't necessarily advertise specific repos on my resume. It's more about for me personally, my YouTube channel. And I have a bunch of stuff on GitHub, but they're not as well documented as they should be. But that's always going to be my advice is that it should be if you're going to put it on there. So I think that's cool. I guess this probably comes back from your automated testing with Selenium, being able to kind of do some automated stuff on a website. Social network, that's way too vague. Honestly, really brutal feedback is that it sounds a little naive, maybe, I guess. And the reason is social network, one, everybody has this idea for a social network and everybody wants to be the next Facebook or Twitter. Just because it's so vague, it makes me not believe it, I guess. So what was sell yourself a little bit in the title. What was the social network? or maybe take it off if it doesn't have the impact. You might take it off, and I'll let you kind of gauge what of these 3 projects makes the most sense. If this is just HTML, CSS, jQuery, Ajax, you got some backend stuff there too. Definitely don't need the skills section. Set up Apache web server to host the directory of files used. Setting up an Apache web server is fairly straightforward. That's not something I would put on there. I'm just trying to see how close are we getting down to a page. So just so you can see what it looks like to get down to a page, which is what I would recommend. I'd probably take a line there. I guess I'd probably take a line here. This probably actually still needs some breathing room in between those. And that last thing is a one-liner. So something like that. And I know that probably makes you, and it makes most people feel uncomfortable because you've cut your description up here in half, and honestly, I mean, like something like that I think would be maybe a little bit longer than that. Maybe fill out this 3rd line. So maybe 3 lines. Languages and frameworks, Python. Let me see if I can REST API endpoints. You can just get into REST. You can get into, I think HTTP, honestly, or REST would cover. And maybe you could do RESTful APIs. That'll work. That'll cover HTTP. So that'll kind of include that with that. So that saves you a line there as well. JavaScript, jQuery, Selenium, data parsing, OAuth. That's interesting. Stripe is actually really cool too. Google APIs. I get like Google Maps, maybe web frameworks. That's a little vague. If you're claiming web frameworks, I want to see a web framework on your resume. So I would maybe challenge that a little bit to not put that on there. If you're talking, I guess I've deleted a bunch of the stuff so far. So you're talking like jQuery and Ajax. I wouldn't put like web frameworks on there. When I think of web frameworks on the front end side, and maybe you're thinking back end too. So think about that. Does web frameworks really make sense? And what frameworks are you talking about? If you're talking about front end, usually it's Angular, React, Vue. If you don't have experience with one of those, the 3 biggest ones, I probably wouldn't put it on there, to be honest. So this is what it looks like, and this is actually really tough to get your resume down to a one pager. Now, what you can do is you can look for templates, and I've actually got, if you go into Google Docs, just like the Google Docs first open page, and go to Google Docs, you can see the first resume template here is actually the one I use. And you can save yourself some space by having this little sidebar over here. So you can do like your personal information. You can have your skills over here, maybe some awards to add on there as well. And then gives you some more room to do your experience and education and projects and stuff. So maybe something to look at, but this is close to, with me just kind of hacking away a little bit. This is what I would expect in your 1-page resume. Again, not a whole lot of space. So you really got to be pretty intentional about everything that you say, every keyword that you use, and you want to make sure that you use the keywords that are associated with the job that you're looking at. All right, I think that's all I've got. I think you've got some cool stuff on here. I think you need to parse it down a little bit. You can spice it up with bolding some of those keywords. Make your intro text a little bit more intentional, more descriptive about where you are. Make sure you're ready to talk about that big gap in your education, finishing versus starting as a software engineer. So keep those things in mind. But again, I think you've got some great stuff. I think you just need to sell it a little bit differently, and you'll be in a good spot. So thanks again for sending over your resume. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope everybody got something out of this, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. You can also check out learnbuildteach.com to sign up for the newsletter to learn about my latest content. Thanks for watching.